What page is it?
111.
Everyone can see at home?
Yes.
Looks good from here.
We have a little bit more about manna. We're almost finished with our manna run. And hopefully today we can get to the 10 Commandments, if not a little close to it. That's sort of my mental target today, but we'll see how it goes. Let's all join together for our blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Amen v'amen. Okay. Melissa, you want to start us off? Maybe, yeah. And Adonai said to Moses, how long will you all refuse? Like that. I think chapter 16, 28.
The 111, page 111, first full paragraph.
And the Lord said to Moses, how long will you men refuse to obey my commandments and my teachings? Mark that the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, he gives you 2 days' food on the 6th day. Let everyone remain where he is. Let no one leave his place on the 7th day. So the people remained inactive on the 7th day. The house of Israel named it manna. It was like coriander seed, white, and it tasted like wafers and honey.
Wafers and honey. That sounds good. Not exactly a steak, but you know, it sounds like it could be all right. Maybe not every day though. Coriander seed, white, and tasted like wafers and honey.
Nabisco.
Nabisco, shredded wheat, shredded manna. What are the vanilla wafers? Vanilla wafers. Okay. Let's keep going. We got to finish up this manna. Keep going, Melissa.
So this is what the Lord has commanded. Let the omer of it be kept throughout the ages, in order that they may see the bread that I fed you in the wilderness when I brought you out of the land of Egypt. And Moses said to Aaron, take a jar, put 1 omer of manna in it, and place it before the Lord to be kept throughout the ages. As the Lord had commanded Moses, Aaron placed it before the pack to be kept. And the Israelites ate manna 40 years until they came to a settled land. They ate the manna until they came to the border of the land of Canaan. The omer is 1/10 of an ephah.
Glad that clears that up by the end. You know, if you want to just know how much an omer was. The glaven is 1/10 of the flingle flangle, you know. That's fantastic.
And I'm going to eat manna for 40 years.
40 years, which is, by the way, the interesting little spoiler here is that it has already in Exodus the idea that we're wandering for 40 years. Like that hasn't happened yet. We haven't received that decree, that punishment. That's going to come later. And so one has to, I guess if there was a redaction made later, obviously, you know, after everything had already taken place. Oh, by the way, the manna was a 40-year experience. Like peanut butter and jelly every day. You get sort of the same meal.
7 days.
7 days is hard with matzah over here, and you know, much less 40 years with manna. That's a lot of manna. Okay. Now we can at least move off of manna for a little while and on to other subjects. Tyler, you want to pick up there from the wilderness?
What page are we on?
I don't know.
111.
111.
Verse 17.
Okay.
Yeah, we're starting 17.
What's the first
In
sentence?
the wilderness.
Thank you.
There we go.
I have ADHD.
Fair enough.
From the wilderness of sin, the whole Israelite community continued by stages as the Lord would command. They encamped at Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. The people quarreled with Moses. Give us water to drink, they said. And Moses replied to them, why do you quarrel with me? Why do you try the Lord? But the people thirsted there for water, and the people grumbled against Moses and said, why did you bring us up from Egypt to kill us and our children and the livestock with thirst. Moses cried out to the Lord, saying, what shall I do to these people? Before long, they will be stoning me.
Yeah, I mean, again, we haven't really made a lot of progress, from Egypt, and there's a lot of complaining already. We had already the water issue a couple chapters ago, right? Or give us water to drink, and he had to make the water sweet by throwing the wood in there, and it made it sweet and tasty, some good spring water, as opposed to, other yucky water. So they're back to him, giving him the business. And Moses says, talk to my manager. Why are you quarreling with me? Why don't you bother God about this? And they're still busting Moses's chops a little bit here. Why did you bring us out from Egypt? Because, Egypt was so nice. At least we had water there, and now we're out in the wilderness to die of thirst. And then God, answers Moses, because Moses is already getting a little bit exhausted by this already. He's already sort of burned out with these people. What shall I do with these people? They're all, they're all mashiga. And even worse, they're going to start stoning me. And that will not be a good end for Moses.
T-shirt says, why did you bring me from Egypt? Fill in the blank.
Yeah. So he sort of needs like at least he needs a recording, something, so he doesn't have the same. He needs a complaint box. That's the whole thing. Like he needs to have, some easy way for the people just to complain, and he can just put it in the shredder like I do. So that's the key. But no, he's upset. One cannot blame him for being upset. It's hot for him too out there. And so he is now going to perform another little trick here. Tyler, want to give you a little more than Adonai and Lord Moses?
Then Adonai said to Moses, cast before the people, take with you some of the elders of Israel and take along the rod with you. Struck the Nile and set out, I will be standing before you on the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock and water will issue from it, and the people will drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. The place was named Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled and because they tried the Lord, saying, is the Lord present among us or not? Yeah,
and so we like naming things after stress or after good things as well, depending on what's happening, but there's a lot of service. So, Massah comes from the root to test, and Meribah comes from the root for quarreling, for fighting. And so they named it after quarreling and fighting. Moses does one of his patented moves here. So they hits the rock with the staff, and then the good water comes out. So they get water from the rock. Pretty cool, miracle there. And the people get to drink, and they're happy, at least for 5 minutes. Wait 5 minutes, they'll be unhappy again. And, this question, that God has to constantly prove to the Israelites God's might, power, presence, however you want to define it, but God has to consistently prove that God is worthy of praise and worship, because once the people get a little bit upset, they're like, oh, this is terrible again, oh my God, and they get really verklempt, as we used to say back in the day. So now the people are a little bit nuts. Yeah, Leah?
It's interesting that God can control Pharaoh the way he did by hardening his heart, but that he can't control the Israelites or whatever that he can't control them.
They're uncontrollable. They are stiff-necked people, as we will find out. And Pharaoh is the heart of heart as well. Yeah, you're right that that God interferes, according to at least a very literal translation, God interferes with Pharaoh's free will, right? Because God hardens Pharaoh's heart so that the signs and wonders could be further, for further, what's the word for it? Like recognized, realized, popularized, but here, the Israelites, God doesn't literally harden their heart or lighten their hearts. God is trying to, with these miracles, these signs and wonders, convince them of something, and to show them that God is not only present, but you have to have faith. And these people have no faith. They are
He's teaching
faithless.
them faith.
What?
Is he teaching them faith?
I think that's what God is trying to do, because manna is a test of faith, as well, that you have to give up a sense of control, and that God is going to take care of you. God's going to send down that manna. You don't have to save it for the next day. In fact, you can't, because it's going to spoil, right? Or if you try to go out on Shabbat and get it, it's not there. But you have to trust that on Sunday morning, it's going to be raining manna. Hallelujah, it's raining manna.
Manna. Oh, sorry.
Rabbi, I have a question. Yeah. It refers to some of the elders of Israel.
Yes.
And in the next chapter, it mentions a fight with Israel. The people were then already known as Israel?
Yeah. Yeah, because they sort of took that appellation, from Jacob, that they were, the people of Israel, so that they had that then. Now, if they actually had that then, that might be a surprise. I'm saying the writers, gave them that designation. I'm not sure whether if we're actually talking about in the wilderness, at 1800, 1700, BCE, that they would be known as the people of Israel yet.
So, because all before this, they were always referred to as the Hebrews.
Yeah, I think you would get more likely Hebrews at this time, but I think the author is giving them Israel at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a writer's thing that they put in there.
I think so. I don't know when it became commonplace for the people to be called Israel at this point in time. I don't know when that started. It certainly started, and I'm talking about historically speaking. Like historically speaking, we have a sense that, by the 8th century, 9th century, BCE, that we have it, but in terms of, again, because in 1000 we have the country of Israel around 1000 BCE, but we have no archaeological evidence of the country of Israel at 1000 BCE. We have archaeological evidence more again in the 8th century BCE, 8th, 9th. What we have on writings and on stones, we have references to Israel.
Yeah.
But people themselves would think themselves as the people of Jacob or the people of Israel. They're not thinking of the country of Israel. They're thinking they're the people who descended from Israel.
Yeah, you say like a tribal name.
Yeah, tribal name. Yes, but I'm saying that I'm not sure whether they themselves at that point in time had that yet. Had that understanding yet of. We have that as the tradition of going back to Jacob, whether they had an understanding after 420 years from generation to generation that they were the people of Israel as opposed to the people of Abraham or the people of Isaac or the people of Joseph. For us it's easy because again we have the 2,000 plus years of doing it in a certain way. But whether they themselves knew or referred to themselves as Israelites at this point, maybe. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying I'm not sure when that designation officially took place from a historical record of when they referred to themselves as Israelites.
Could have been Jacobites.
Because Hebrews, we know, like Hebrews was common, at that point. But eventually there was a switch. There was a transition between being Hebrews and being Israelites. And certainly the kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of Israel, then you had Israelites living in the kingdom of Israel. Here we have Hebrews, mixed multitude, and again, maybe Israelites, from the tribal name of Israel, wandering around, suburban Egypt, very suburban Egypt, instead of going outside. and wandering in said wilderness. And that's Sinai Peninsula. Nice place, but not a lot of water. A lot of sand, a lot of rock.
Strike the right one.
You got to hit the right rock. You got to hit the right rock, and then it's good. Okay, so that was interesting, and now we'll continue with our story here. Rick, you want to pick up? And let's get our bad guy going here. Amalek. Boo.
Amalek fought with Israel at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, pick some men for us and go out and do battle with Amalek. I will station myself on top of the hill with a rod of God in my hand.
Yeah, so Moses is overlooking this whole thing. Keep going.
Joshua did as Moses told him and fought with Amalek while Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. Then whenever Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed. But whenever he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hand grew heavy, so they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Sat on it.
Wow, Aaron and Hur.
Put a stone and he sat on it while Aaron and Hur, one on each side, supported his hands. Thus his hands remained steady until the sunset. And Joshua overwhelmed the people of Amalek with a sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, inscribe this in a document as a reminder and read it aloud to Joshua. I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. And Moses built an altar and named it Adonai Nisi. He said it means hand upon the throne of the Lord. The Lord will be at war with Amalek throughout the ages.
Okay, so we get some fun theology here. So Amalek comes up and fights with the Israelites. Amalek, the Amalekites, another tribe, a little tribal warfare. According to tradition, he attacks the Israelites from behind and starts attacking the sort of the elderly, the stragglers, the women, the children. And then Moses says, okay, now it's time to fight with these people. So they have to sort of perform some maneuvers. And they are fighting with full force, against this tribe. But then Moses has a very special role because Moses isn't out there throwing hands. Moses is a little bit too old for this at this point. So he's going to get up on the rock and he's going to be the source of inspiration. And Aaron and Hur, has he been mentioned before yet?
No.
First time he is also on the list of candidates for Miriam's potential husband. It's important to the Israelites that Miriam is married, for the rabbis, I should say, later. And so Hur is also up there on the list of people who is potentially Miriam's husband, even though it never says anything in the Torah about Miriam having a husband or any kind of love interest. But they need her to be
married.
And so Hur and Aaron go with Moses, and Moses again is tired. It's a long day. It's a lot of work exodusing. So he's a little bit tired. And so Moses has to hold up the rod, has to hold up the staff of God. But again, tiring after a while. And so they have to help him lift his hands up. And they're sort of supporting him because whenever his hand goes up, the Israelites are winning. The hands go down, Amalek is winning. So we can't have that. And so they have to just hold his hands up to make sure the Israelites are victorious. And they are, and they do. And then God sort of comes on and says, hey, let's make a little agreement here, a little pact that we got to kill these people, wherever they're at. We got to kill them. We got to blot them out from under heaven because of their great transgression of making war with the Israelites when they were tired and exhausted and fighting them from behind. So they have this serious invocation here that throughout history we have to fight Amalek, be at war with them and try to blot out their name from under heaven. Which story in the Jewish tradition, which holiday harkens back to this story?
That would be Purim.
That would be Purim. Yeah, we're hearing Purim. That is correct. Because our villain from that story is an Amalekite. We didn't get the job done. They were still around, even in Persia, at that point in time. So we're constantly fighting him. Every time a bad guy comes up on the Jewish scene, we find some way to relate him to Amalek. So they're saying, Hitler was Amalek, and Ahmadinejad was Amalek, and, whoever is there.
Becomes a general term as an enemy.
Yeah, we wouldn't have any genetics, linking these guys back all the way to this fella here. But yeah, no, it would just be more of that metaphorical designation. So I remember there was a minister of Israel, an MK, who called other parties in the Israeli government Amalek, and that didn't go over very well. Yes, he was not a popular fellow, but I don't think he particularly cared about his popularity. And basically, it was anyone who was, center left and further. All those people were Amalek and should be killed. So that was nice. That was special. Okay. Any questions about Amalek and his evilness? No. Now, one of my favorite stories, we're almost there, but not there just yet. But our friend Jethro is in. This is a new Torah portion. It is, I think it's one of the two, I'm trying to remember now, one of the two Torah portions that are named after someone who is not Jewish. I think there actually aren't anyone's named. I'm trying to do a quick scan of my brain for anyone who is Jewish or Israelite at that point in time, to be fair. But we have Noah, but Noah is before sort of the Israelites, and we have Yitro, Parshat Yitro, the Torah portion named after Jethro, who is a Midianite and happens to be, of course, Moses's father-in-law. And so now we're going to learn a little bit about Jethro and see if he has any interesting words to say in this portion. And spoiler alert, he does. Karen, you want to pick up a little bit here? Jethro, the priest of?
Oh, Jethro, priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard all that God had done for Moses and for Israel, God's people, how Adonai had brought Israel out from Egypt. That's not even a good sentence. So Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' wife, after she had been sent home, and her 2 sons, of whom one was named Gershom, that is to say, I have been a stranger in a foreign land, and the other was named Eliezer, meaning the God of my father's house was my help, delivering me from the sword of Pharaoh.
Okay, because you can't have the kids with you when you're exodusing. You can't have the wife and kids bothering you. It's like that's a lot. Moses has a lot on his plate as it is. He can't be dealing with the kids and his wife. So Jethro, had been housing them and sort of brings them along. And Jethro, I think it should be noted, as we'll see again in this chapter, Jethro seems to be able to grasp this idea that the Israelite God is awesome, and is doing wonderful things much easier than the Israelites are. He's pretty easily convinced and understanding of what's happening here. So we get Moses' 2 kids, Gershom we've met before. I don't remember if Eliezer we had before, but now we get both boys here. Gershom and Eliezer. Gershom, the idea that he's been a stranger in a foreign land. And Eliezer, Eli is my God, and Ezer is help. And so, the God of my father's house was my help, delivering me from the sword of Pharaoh. So that's why we have those 2 boys here. Jethro's father-in-law, Karen, give me a little more.
Oh, a little father-in-law wisdom. Jethro, as if we didn't know, Moses' father-in-law, brought Moses' sons and wife to him in the wilderness, where he was encamped at the mountain of God. He sent word to Moses, I, your father-in-law Jethro, we don't want to forget that he's the father-in-law.
And make sure you know who he is.
Yeah, exactly. I'm coming to you with your wife and her 2 sons, not your 2 sons, but her 2 sons. Moses went out to meet his father-in-law. He bowed low and kissed him Each asked of the other's welfare, and then they went into the tent.
Yeah, it's very important. Social norms, how you doing? Oh, I'm great. How you doing?
That's part of the dialogue.
It's very part of the dialogue. We're just going to skip over it, but just let you know that they are people and, courteous in the world. But Jethro, who you might remember is Moses' father-in-law, he's they're together now, reunited, and it feels so good. I remember Jethro had housed him for a while, and then we had the little love and marriage here with Zipporah, and now we got the kids as well. So it's a big family reunion. Break out the football and the pie. It's going to be a good time. Everyone's all together again.
Yeah.
It's a nice thing, a good thing. True. Leah, you want to pick up here? Moses then recounted? Hold on. There we go. Go
Moses then recounted to his father-in-law everything that Adonai had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, all the hardships that had befallen them on the way, and how Adonai had delivered them. And Jethro rejoiced over all the kindness that Adonai had shown Israel when delivering them from the Egyptians. Blessed be Adonai, Jethro said, who delivered you from the Egyptians and from Pharaoh, and who delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that Adonai is greater than all gods. Yes, by the result of their very schemes against the people. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and sacrifices for God. And Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to partake of the meal before God with Moses' father-in-law.
He's still there, just in case we forgot. So Moses tells the story, it's like, you're reunited with family you haven't seen in a little while. Oh, how you been? Oh, let me tell you how I've been. It's been a long couple of months. But boy, did I see some stuff. Here's some slides from my vacation. And so going through all of the pictures and, oh, there's the Red Sea splitting. Oh, there's the pillar of fire. Let me tell you, the food was fantastic. So they sort of get there, and Jethro's blown away. Wow, Moses, that's a really cool story, and your God is awesome. And so we're not only going to praise God here and give a little blessing, but now I know, even though I am, by the way, a priest of Midian, not just Moses' father-in-law, but I know that Adonai is greater than all the gods, because of what has been demonstrated, what you've told me. So again, he gets it pretty quick. He's a fast learner. And then a little sacrifice, a calf maybe a goat, and then it's delicious. What's left over? We got a little bit of a meal together, and we enjoy.
Do we have any idea what a priest of Midian is, like, who he prays to, for instance, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we do. I don't at the moment, but I do. But the question was, if you didn't hear, like, who do the Midianites worship? And there are lots of sort of different gods at this point. Baal being the big one, Baal. He was a god of fertility, and he was very popular as one to be worshipped at that time. An Asherah, an Asherah becomes another term of an idol worshiping practice, but Asherah was also, if memory serves, a goddess at that time. This became generalized later that in terms of that kind of cult. And Molech, there was a Molech cult as well, and that was the Moabites in particular, had. So we have a sense there was sort of a pantheon of pagan deities, and so the god of Midian would probably have one of them, that's around.
It's interesting that they say, he's greater than all the gods,
Yeah.
Not that he is the one God.
Yeah, no one had that yet.
The only God.
Yeah, no one had that yet. yeah, that comes much later. That comes,
with the commandments, doesn't it?
no, that still comes probably about 500 years into the Davidic dynasty, that we probably have true monotheism, maybe a little less. Let's call it 700 or so BCE in that area, because Isaiah has it. I think Deutero-Isaiah, but still Isaiah has it. But before that, I think the idea is still you have the Israelite God up here, and all the other gods are down here, sort of, and they are subservient and less powerful. And so we're worshiping the best God, the most powerful God, but not the only God. There's like other gods around. They just stink. Our God is the best. Our God is #1 rated on Yelp, and has the best ratings on Uber. He can take you wherever you want to go. It just takes you 40 years. You got to eat the same thing every day. So maybe that Yelp review is too high. But yes, our God is the big cool God, and those other gods are not so great.
I wonder if
Okay.
Sandy?
the other gods, they had idols, and I would assume they had the idols. And did they ever question and wonder why they have these statues of idols of theirs, and they never got to see our God or Moses's God?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a tough sell, right? Because people like the idols and they like seeing them, and the idea of having a God without an idol, without an image, that part was new. Like that part was different, and which is why the Israelites freak out, in a few chapters, and they need the golden calf because they need something to pray towards.
Gotcha.
Moses has the staff, and Moses has the charismatic leadership, but again, you see how it falls short every other chapter when the Israelites are like, we need something else, we're upset, because it's not normal for them not to be able to view God, which is why in a concession, I would argue that not that it's the same, but you need the pillar of smoke, you need the Mishkan, you need something that, the portable tabernacle, you need something to look at, you need some kind of symbol that says, well, that's where God is, that's God's house, that's God's presence, because if you don't have it, it's easier to fall into idolatry. But it was, as you say, very tricky for them because that was the culture, is to have an idol, something to look at, something to dance around, and something to, worship, however one wants to worship. Those prophets of Baal, we get to them in a couple of years at this rate. That's in Kings. That's a long way off. Okay, oops. Okay, there we go. Sandy, you want to pick up here next day?
Next day, Moses sat as magistrate among the people. What?
Oh, come on. Here we go. Nope, still didn't have it. Okay, here we go.
While the people stood about Moses from morning until evening. But when Moses' father-in-law saw how much he had to do for the people, he said, "What is this thing that you are doing to the people? Why do you act alone while all the people stand about from you morning until evening?" Moses replied to his father-in-law, "It is because the people come to me to inquire of God. When they have a dispute, it comes before me, and I decide between one party and another, and I make known the laws and teachings of God."
Okay, so we're entering into a passage here that I feel like should be blown up in big letters and like put in the Makom, or just like every time we have a board meeting, we should like pass out this story because it's really one of the most important stories about leadership. In fact, I'm 95% sure that during my interview at Temple B'nai Israel, I actually used this story as my tech study piece. Pretty sure, not positive, but this is one of my go-tos because I do love this story. It's a very layered, very textured story. So Moses, I always point out the imagery here that it says Moses sat as magistrate, which is a euphemism, right? It's like when you're a sitting judge, but the idea that if you take it literally, like Moses, you almost feel like he's sitting on the ground, sort of sitting on a stool, whatever it might be, while the people stood about him from Moses until evening, from morning to evening. And so he's just sort of here, and everyone's like all around him, whatever things the guy's just yammering his poor ear off. And then Moses' father-in-law once again, and here's, by the way, I think why it's repeated about father-in-law over and over again, because you would think, maybe your father-in-law would have some advice, right? Moses doesn't have a dad to turn to at this point. He's out of the story. If he was ever in it, he's not in it anymore. But so the father-in-law is sort of what he has as the sort of guiding parental figure. And he looks at him, and it starts off maybe a little bit harsh. What are you doing? This isn't great. What are you doing to the people, right? Not about yourself, Moses. What are you doing to everyone else here? Why are you acting alone? Why are you in charge just by yourself? Well, everyone is about you, again, hocking you a Chinik here, and bothering you with everything and anything. And Moses says, look, I got a tough job here. Get off my back. People come to me to inquire of God. And so if there's a problem, they come to me. And I decide, because I, Moses, can make the laws and teachings of God known. He's got a point. Moses is the one that has been appointed. Moses is the prophet. He's the leader. And so he's the one making the decisions. He's the one getting all of the complaints. Okay, and then Sandy, give me a little more here, but Moses' father-in-law.
Moses' father-in-law said to him, the thing you are doing is not right. You will surely wear yourself out, and these people as well. For the task is too heavy for you. You cannot do it alone. Now listen to me. I will give you counsel, and God be with you. You represent the people before God. You bring the disputes before God, and enjoin upon them the laws and the teachings, and make known to them the way they are to go and the practices they are to follow. You shall also seek out from among all the people capable individuals who fear God, trustworthy ones who spurn ill-gotten gains. Set these over them as chiefs of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens, and let them judge the people at all times. Have them bring every major dispute to you, but let them decide every minor dispute among themselves. Make it easier for yourself by letting them share the burden with you. If you do this and God so commands you, you will be able to bear up, and all these people too will go home unwearied.
Very nice. The powers of delegation. Okay, you got to set up a system. You got to set up some kind of institution to help you in leadership. And again, Jethro's very smart, that he's very direct, he's very clear, but he doesn't just criticize. In the beginning, he does. Hey, Moses, lo tov. It literally says in the Torah, lo tov. It's not good. It's not good what you're doing here, because you're going to exhaust yourself and the people. It's not good for anybody. So let me listen to father-in-law's advice. Come sit by Jethro. And remember, as I pointed out, Jethro is not just a father-in-law, but remember what his job is. He's a priest of Midian. He's a chieftain. He's a leader in his community, right? So he's also speaking most likely from personal experience.
Yeah.
So he's in the voice of wisdom and experience. So set up this structure. The big stuff, Moses, all you. Any big God stuff, that's your job. You're a big picture person. You handle the big problems, but find some other folks. Not just any old doofus that's around. You got to find some smart people, trustworthy people. People that are respected. You can go to them and you set them as chiefs of big groups or small groups, depending on who they are. Let them deal with it. Let them figure it out. And that's going to be helpful. It's going to mean there's a little bit of burden sharing, And I just love this line, if you do this, and by the way, God commands you to do this, so he's laying it on real thick here. Then you'll be able to bear up, right? When all the other people can go home unweary. And it's important. Moses doesn't have to be exhausted all the time, that they can have an actual chain of authority and leadership. That means that Moses can handle the big stuff, but we also have people who can handle different things as well. Draw upon other people's expertise. Makes sense, right? Lessons of leadership.
And so Jethro was really showing his belief in God for him to say that. No, I mean, he was bought into that or whatever.
No, yeah, and invoking, God as a partner in this argument. So it's not just Jethro talking. It's, and again, Jethro is someone who has some sense of the divinity, right? He has some sense of God, right? As a Midianite priest, he has at least some understanding of this. And so he's a smart talker. He's gonna, create an argument that's gonna be hard for Moses to disagree with.
If you delegate, you do a better job.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And so then we have here, Moses is smart here, so he listens to a good old father-in-law. Gary, you want to pick up there? Moses heeded?
Sure. Moses heeded his father-in-law and did just as he had said. Moses chose capable individuals out of all Israel and appointed them heads over the people, chiefs of thousands, hundreds, 50s, and 10s, and they judged the people at all times. The difficult matters they would bring to Moses, and all the minor matters they would decide themselves. Then Moses bade his father-in-law farewell, and he went his way to his own land.
That's it. Pops in, gives the advice, leaves on a high note. It's nice, the perfect visit. He stays just long enough to give the wisdom, doesn't overstay his welcome, and hits the road afterwards. So, good job, Jethro. Way to be.
Stephen Covey of the world, the 7 habits of highly effective people.
Yes. He has to get this all straightened out.
Yeah.
And he does, at least for now. But it's a great lesson in leadership, and there's a lot of great imagery here. And Moses needs a little humility to step back a little bit and understand that what he's doing isn't the best path. It's going to eventually not only again hurt him but hurt the community. But then he has to sort of step into the different leadership model and say, hey, we're going to do this differently and create a system that works for him and works for the people. So it's a really cool story, I think. And I think what's interesting is that's the Jethro portion of this Torah portion, so to speak, is done. But what's coming up next is Sinai, is revelation. So there's like a moment of personal revelation to Moses, and now we're going to have divine revelation, in chapter 20. We still have 19 to get through. But we have the 10 Commandments coming up right quick, and it's all under the same Torah portion as a Midianite priest, to have that title. So I think that's pretty cool as well, that it is in the intro in that Torah portion where we get the 10 Commandments. And there's a tradition saying that the reason why is because of the advice that he gave to Moses, that he was a worthy person, he was a righteous person, and he, really helped make the Israelite community strong, which is why he has the merit of being the one who the Torah portion of the 10 Commandments is named after. So pretty cool idea in and of itself. Okay, but before we have 10 Commandments, we have to prep for the 10 Commandments. So Gary, you want to give me one more here on the third new moon?
Okay. On the third new moon, after the Israelites had gone forth from the land of Egypt, on that very day they entered the wilderness of Sinai. Having journeyed from Rephidim, they entered the wilderness of Sinai and encamped in the wilderness. Israel encamped there in front of the mountain, and Moses went up to God. Adonai called him to him from the mountain, saying, Thus shall you say to the house of Jacob, and declare to the children of Israel, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians, how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to me. Now then, if you will obey me faithfully and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all the peoples. Indeed, all the earth is mine, but you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the children of Israel.
Thank you. Now we're getting some more theology here, okay? So we're heading off to Sinai, and then Moses and God have a little conversation here, and says, hey, remind the people, what I did. Because again, that's where the cachet is, the yichus. That's the connection, right? God led them out of Egypt. Therefore, maybe listen to God. God freed them, liberated them. And now we're going to get the laws that are part of the original covenant that we had with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We had the covenant that was a little more broad, but now we're going to start getting the details of said covenant. And then you'll be a treasured possession, a chosen people amongst the other peoples. The earth is mine, but you shall be a kingdom of priests. Every one of you a rabbi, every one of you a priest, a minister, etc., etc., a holy nation. Really, it is priests, because the priests are the ones who act, to create holiness. So the idea would be is that that it's not just the actual Kohanim, the priests, but every one of us, it should be a priest who's creating holiness through actions. So there's the literal priests and the metaphorical priests. And so we are a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Not a small task. A little bit intimidating, I could think, to have this designation. But that's where they are. And they need that understanding before they're able to receive the commandments. Okay. Let's see here. Barbara, you want to pick up here?
Moses came and summoned the elders of the people and put before them all that Adonai had commanded him. All those assembled answered as one, saying, all that Adonai has spoken, we will do. And Moses brought back the people's words to Adonai. And then Adonai said to Moses, I will come to you in a thick cloud, in order that the people may hear when I speak with you, and so trust you ever after.
It's a nice idea. It doesn't exactly work exactly that way, as we know, but this idea that the people commit. Moses is like the go-between. He's like the messenger going back and forth. God, what do you have to say? Cool, let me tell the people. People, what do you want to say to God? Okay. So he's the intermediary, sort of running back and forth here. And he gets a commitment, right? He gets a yes, from the people that we're going to do what God commands. And God says, sure, okay, now I'm going to, come down in that cloud and let's have a conversation. Let's talk a little bit. Might be a little bit of a one-sided conversation, but it is a conversation. God's going to let them know what's going on. Okay, Barbara, give me one more. Then Moses reported.
Then Moses reported the people's words to Adonai. And Adonai said to Moses, go to the people and warn them to stay pure today and tomorrow. Let them wash their clothes. Let them be ready for the third day. For on the third day, Adonai will come down in the sight of all the people on Mount Sinai. You shall set bounds for the people round about, saying, beware of going up the mountain or touching the border of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall be put to death without being touched, by being either stoned or shot. Beast or burden, a trespasser shall not live. When the ram's horn sounds a long blast, he may go up on the mountain.
Yeah, so a little line of put to death without being touched sounds a little bit mystical until we get to the next part of that sentence. Should you put to death without being touched? Because you're going to get stoned or shot, or well, whatever it is. So gotta get pure, right? Gotta get right with God before get right with God, right? So you have to be pure. You have to, get ritually pure more than anything else. And then third day, that's what's going to happen. So you have to get ready. You got to prepare. It's a special time, a special moment. So you have to get ready. It can't just happen. You need to have mental and physical and spiritual preparation. Have to set up, the area, because if you're touching the mountain, you're going to die. So you have to create a border to make sure that no one touches the mountain. But the border is also dangerous, but I think it's just the mountain, right? Yeah, because you don't want to touch the border, because you touch the border means you're getting close to the mountain. And so you have to have that little perimeter. You have to establish a perimeter of holiness, which we'll see again, that same model in the temple. The temple is constructed. There's going to be a special inside part and designated areas that are marked off on the outside for different groups of people. And when you hear that old shofar blast, then it's time to go back up on the mountain. And so we get a little more from Moses here, because again, Moses is running back and forth. Barbara, give me one more.
Oh, sorry. Well, Moses came down from the mountain to the people and warned the people to stay pure, and they washed their clothes. And he said to the people, "Be ready for the third day. The men amongst you should not go near a woman." On the third day, as morning dawned, there was thunder and lightning and a dense cloud upon the mountain, and a very loud blast of the horn. And all the people who were in the camp trembled. Moses led the people out of the camp toward God, and they took their places at the foot of the mountain.
Yeah, so the whole assembly is getting convened. Moses gives them the news. Adds a little extra sentence in there that we didn't see before, about maybe staying away from the women. We get a little extra admonition on that one. And we sort of just breeze by it. And then we get the thunder and the lightning and the cloud and the horn, and we're ready. We're ready for revelation. Any questions, comments, thoughts?
Is this where the idea of mikvah comes from?
Nah, we'll get that a little later. It is partly where we get the idea of separation of the sexes, for prayer and moments of holiness. That will certainly be a cause for it. There is something to the idea of the physical purity of the washing of the clothes, because it doesn't necessarily they're dunking themselves, but that we have to make sure that we are ritually pure. So, you know what? I take it back. There might be some idea here of water purification that could inform mikvah later. I think of mikvah as sort of a later tradition. But as I said, when we read these texts, the rabbis and others justify some of their ideas by looking at the Torah, and so maybe this idea of the cleansing and the washing of the clothes and sort of how they've sort of become pure as people. It might be in there somewhere, certainly as a historical antecedent for it. Mm-hmm. But they have to be pure. They have to be right and not polluted by different pollutants. And we get a lot of that more in Leviticus, obviously, than we do here. Okay. David, can you unmute? You can sort of get us right to the commandments.
Here I am.
Yep.
Now Mount Sinai was all in smoke, for Adonai had come down upon it in fire. Smoke rose like the smoke of a kiln, and the whole mountain trembled violently. The blare of the horn grew louder and louder. As Moses spoke, God answered him in thunder.
Yeah, it's tough, right? This is like really exciting stuff now. Now we're getting the show. There's fire and smoke and thunder, and the mountain is shaking and quaking. We got the shofar going. We're getting everyone's attention. Okay, give me a little more, David.
Adonai came down upon Mount Sinai on the top of the mountain, And Adonai called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. Adonai said to Moses, "Go down, warn the people not to break through to Adonai to gaze, lest many of them perish. The priests also who came near Adonai must stay pure, lest Adonai breaks out against them." But Moses said to Adonai, "The people cannot come up to Mount Sinai, for you warned us, saying, 'Set bounds upon the mountain and sanctify it.'"
Yeah, so relax, God. I mean, like, we got it. We set up all the orange cones and the yellow tape, and then the metal barricades. We know what we're supposed to be doing here. The people know where they're supposed to stand. Like, we got it. We covered that already. Because God's a little concerned. And Dave, give me one more. So Adonai said.
Adonai said to him, "Go down and come back together with Aaron. But let not the priests or the people break through to come up to Adonai, lest God break out against them." And Moses went down to the people and spoke to them.
Yeah, we got it, God. We got it. Don't touch the mountain. Don't touch the mountain. We understand, but God wants to make sure we really understand. Aren't messing with Mount Sinai.
What priest is he referring to? Do not let the priests or the people break through.
And so, even though Aaron has not yet been ordained as a priest, that's the job he gets. And so, again, the terminology, I think, might be a little bit, again, tricky from a historical standpoint, whether or not the priests were there. But we have some idea in Exodus even that there's going to be a ruling class, or not, maybe ruling is the wrong word. There's going to be a set aside class of priests that are going to perform holy tasks. And that's going to be Aaron and all of his buddies.
But they're not named yet.
Yeah, they haven't been ordained yet. That's going to happen later in Leviticus. We're going to get more of like, you are now the priests, but unofficial, working titles. Haven't gotten it done yet. Working titles. Again, delegation, important. If there's some folks that are going to help out with some of this holy work. And see, we're right there. We're 8 o'clock or 8:01 now. But next week we can begin with the 10 Commandments. So that's a nice place to stop. Okay. I like it. Let's all remember Jethro and I'll pitch in a little bit. It's a good thing.
You thought there was another portion of the Torah that's named after Elijah?
Yeah, saying Noah. Yeah, Noah and Jethro. And then, we don't have a lot of, I'm trying to remember any other Torah portions are named after people. Because, Ruth, she gets her own book. Forget portion. She gets an upgrade. She gets her own book. Ruth and Esther. Then we have all the prophetic books, obviously, the Isaiahs and Ezekiel's. But Torah portions themselves, I don't think I remember any of them except for Jethro and Noah. It's okay.
Oh, Noah. Was Noah Jewish?
No, Noah's before. Noah's earlier. Yeah, Noah's not even Israelite yet. Noah's a dude. An old dude, but a dude. A good dude. Okay. Next week, same time, same place.
All right.
Unless something bizarre happens, which, there's a 1 in 10 chance. But I think we'll be around next week.
20th century.
I hope so. Have a good week.
Yep. Have a good week, everybody.